Would you like me to come off video?
Hi, everybody. We're starting Tanya, chapter 6 today with Tanya for Life. Thanks for being here. Let's go into a little backtrack to begin with before we start off with this new chapter. So, in the previous chapter, the Alter Rebbe, the author of the Tanya, has discussed that the divine soul, with its 10 faculties, the 3 intellectual and 7 emotional faculties, along with its 3 garments by which it expresses itself through thought, speech, and action of Torah and the mitzvot. He explained that the garments of the divine soul are actually on a higher level than the soul itself, inasmuch as Torah and Hashem are one, and that by clothing itself in these garments, by studying the Torah and performing mitzvot, the soul is united with Hashem. This is particularly true of Torah study, in which the soul both embraces and is embraced by the godliness contained in Torah, just like the apple being grasped by the person grasping it. In chapter 6, the Alter Rebbe begins to discuss the animal soul. He explains that its structure exactly parallels that of the divine soul. It too has 10 faculties and 3 garments. Only, unlike the divine soul, the substance of the animal soul is klippa. Its faculties and garments are impurity. By clothing itself in these garments of impurity, the animal soul descends to an even lower state of impurity. Concerning the concept of klippa, we have noted in chapter 1 that although all existence was created by and concerning the concept of klippa, we have noted in chapter 1 that even though all existence was created by and receives life force from Hashem, from godliness, yet in order that man be able to choose between good and evil, and through that earn his reward by serving his creator on his own effort, not being forced in any way, God created forces of impurity, which conceal the godliness in all of creation. These forces are called klippa, literally meaning shells or peels. Just as the shell conceals the fruit, so do the forces of klippa conceal the godliness in every created being. There are 2 categories in klippa. Klippa noga, a klippa inclusive of light and goodness, and the 3 unclean klippot. The first category, first I'll just a little bit explain what he's saying there, is basically the whole structure of the soul that we've learned up until now, the godly soul. The animal soul exactly parallels it. And if we remember from the beginning, the Rebbe actually taught us that our body and our animal soul are just tailor-made outfits for our godly self, our true self, a piece of infinity that's clothed within these things. So just like the tailor has a man come in and custom make clothing and garments, that's what the animal soul is and the body is, to clothe exactly the godly soul. So it makes sense that everything that we've talked about for the godly soul has a counterpart within the animal soul. And so we're learning now like the source of this godly soul, where for the not godly soul, the animal soul, for the godly soul, its source was Elokai Mimamish, like literally from the goodness of Hashem, from like Hashem's face, right? Like his innermost self. And our animal soul is sourced in the klippa. And we learned here that the klippa is just a covering. It's impurity, it's evil. And to say evil means the opposite of holiness. And so here it's telling us that actually Klippa is a 3-part creation. So within the other side, it's sometimes referred to as the other side because it's the other side of holiness. It's that which is not goodness and that which is not holiness. So that Klippa is cut into 3 categories. And within those 3 categories separates all the Klippa, all the other side that exists in the world. So here we learned that in general, before we're talking about the animal soul and where it's sourced, we're talking about these 3 klippot. And the reason that Hashem created klippa, the reason Hashem created that which is not holy, impurity, evil, is so that we would have bechir chafshis, like free choice. Because no one would choose to stuff their face and overeat on food if they were completely clear about all the consequences, if they were completely clear about what it would do to them, how it would make them feel, if they were clear about how it would make their family feel, like what the consequences would be with their interaction with the people around them, if they were clear about how it would affect the body and the organs, things, if it was completely clear in the world, then we wouldn't have free choice. We would want to obviously follow the path that means light and goodness and happiness. So that's example is like knowledge, but even more than knowledge, the goodness. If Hashem showed himself and revealed himself, his goodness through everything, then it wouldn't be a challenge. There would be no challenges that we can overcome and build ourselves through and work on our relationship with Hashem. It would just be, I don't know, it would be stale. It wouldn't be anything worthy of growth or stimulation. So Hashem made this world and made Klippa for the purpose of us having a relationship, coming close to him, looking for him, finding him, and growing and overcoming all of these challenges to be closer to him and to be stronger in ourselves and to find it on our own. And that can only happen through the concealment of him, through the Klippa, hiding behind the Klippa, to allow us to have free choice. So it's an incredible gift. Darknesses and challenges in life can often feel overwhelming and completely bad, but this is telling us that Klippa, the essence of impurity or evil, is just a shell, not a thing in itself. It's just a shell. And the more that we learn Torah, the more that we build our intellect, the easier it will be for us to see it when it comes up, instead of fall to the emotional overwhelm. So that's what we're doing here. Let's learn a little bit more about the 3 klippot that exist in the world. The first category is klippat noga. This contains some measure of goodness. It's not completely evil. It is thus an intermediary level between the realms of good and between the realm of evil. Whatever receives its vitality via the concealing screen of this klippa may be utilized for either good or for evil. To this category belong all permitted physical objects. They can be used for a mitzvah. If I use an object for a mitzvah, then it ascends, it elevates, it thereby ascends to the realm of kedusha, holiness. If this same physical object is used sinfully for impure things, then it becomes further degraded into more impurity, lower than it first was. So ultimately, it in itself is neutral. We have the power as co-creators as people who have effect in this world, we can change every single object around us, all the food that we come across, and we can elevate it. We have that power. That's how it's been created. The second category, consisting of the 3 impure klippot, is completely evil. Whatever receives its vitality via the concealment of this type of klippa cannot be transformed into holiness, nor in some cases may even be used in the service of holiness. To this category belong all forbidden physical objects, whether forbidden only for consumption, like for a Jew, we cannot consume a pig, for reasons beyond our understanding. We just know spiritually it comes from this place of one of the 3 impure klippot, in which case they cannot be transformed into holiness, but they may serve it. They can serve holiness. Or whether forbidden for any form of benefit. In this sort of case, where something is impure to the point of I can't consume it, I can't eat from it, but I also can't accept any benefit from it. So I can't even own this object. I can't sell this object. I can't smell this object because that would give me benefit. Like on Pesach, for example, this idea applies when we're not even supposed to walk past a bakery that we know will be open on Pesach, because we know that we'll get benefit by smelling it, by smelling the bread when we're not meant to be having bread. That's just an idea of not even being able to derive benefit from it, in which case it can't serve any holy purpose whatsoever. So those are the different levels of the impure klippot. Now we get into the Tanya. The Almighty has created one thing opposite the other. Everything in the realm of holiness has its counterpart in klippa. In our context, the animal soul, with its faculties and garments, is the counterpart in klippa of the divine soul, with its faculties and its garments. Just as the divine soul consists of 10 holy faculties, which correspond to the 10 supernal spherot, and is clothed in 3 holy garments, the thought, speech, and action of Torah and mitzvot, so too the soul of Sitra Achra, defined further in this chapter, derived from Klippat Noga, which is clothed in man's blood. As explained in chapter 1, the animal soul is clothed in the blood and thereby animates the body. This soul too consists of 10 crowns of impurity. The faculties of Klippa, called crowns in Kabbalistic terminology. These 10 faculties are 7 evil middot, the 7 emotional traits. They are lust, the equivalent in Klippa of the Middah of Chesed, the Middah that belongs to one of the 7 middot of the godly soul. So for the animal soul is lust. Anger, which is one of these emotional middot of the animal soul, which for the godly soul's middah, it corresponds to Gevurah, severity. The animal soul's trait of boastfulness, which corresponds to the godly soul's Middah of Tiferet, beauty and harmony, and compassion, and so on. It goes on, that each part of the animal soul, each of the 7 emotional middot of the animal soul have a counterpart from the godly soul. So these emotional 7 evil emotional middot stem from the 4 evil elements mentioned above, further in chapter 1, where we talked about the fire, earth, air. Spiritual entities have their elements just as physical objects do. In this case, evil elements, since this is a soul of Klippa. And the intellect, the seichel, which gives birth to these 7 evil middot, which is subdivided into 3. Chochma, Bina and Da'at, just like we learned that the godly soul has. These are the source of all the middot, right? Just like we learned in the other chapters about the godly soul, that these are the 3 mothers, Chochma, Bina and Da'at. So too with the animal soul, here are the 3 mothers, but this is in the evil sense. The intellectual faculties are described as the source of the evil middot. For the middot are commensurate with the quality of one's intellect. Just as a child desires and loves petty things of little value, through desiring something, he is expressing his middah of chesed in the negative sense, which is lust, from the animal soul, right? For his intellect is too immature and deficient to appreciate more valuable things. Similarly, with regard to the Middah of Gevurah, in terms of the animal soul, this child gets angered, gets vexed by small, petty, trivial things, and likewise with regard to boastfulness, which expresses the Middah of Tiferet, and with all the other middot. So all his negative emotions will come out for the littlest, smallest, ridiculous things. If you compare that to what an adult upset, it's beyond, it's 2 different worlds, it's a different gap. Why is it so different? If we have the same emotions and we have the same way that we work, your structure is exactly, your anatomy is exact same as your child. There's a difference though. What's the difference is your intellect. Your Chochma, Bina and Da'at have been much more developed, gone through much more experience, had much more development by what you've taken in, what information you've taken in and learned from and built from, right? So based on all of that, your intellect comes your emotions. Your emotions don't exist on their own. They will follow whatever intellect you have. So if you want to make your emotional responses better to a situation, you have to do the work. You have to realize that you want to upgrade your intellect. You want to upgrade the das, your knowledge, which is why we learn Torah, right? And the Rebbe says something really beautiful, basically that you have to always go up. You have to always try to point upwards and move upwards and keep moving forwards. There's no such thing as standing still. If you're standing still, you're going backwards. The world won't stop for you. You have challenges every single day. So it's not enough to prepare yourself once. You have to build your knowledge. Build on it, build on it, build on it. Hashem is infinite. His Torah is infinite. So there's much more that we can always gain to better deal with a situation. And once we deal with this situation, it'll stop coming up as something that's challenging. It'll stop making me feel badly because I'll have completely transformed the way I see it, which means that all my emotions that are attached to this situation will be good now. It won't be negative anymore. But there'll be something else, and I have to work on that also. So this is the gift of infinity that we have, infinite ways, infinite times that we could build our relationship with God. And I think that's an incredible gift. So this correlation between midot and intellect indicates that the intellect affects the nature and the expression of the midot, emotional character traits. And for this reason, the 3 intellectual faculties are said to be the source of the 7 midot. Now, these 10 unclean categories, when a person thinks, thoughts originating from them, i.e., when he thinks of ways of obtaining something he desires, or he speaks words originating from them, or he does an act which serves or expresses them, Then the thought in his brain, the words in his mouth, and the power of action in his hands and other organs are called impure garments. For these 10 unclean categories of middot are unclean, impure. And they clothe themselves in these garments during the act and speech and thought of negative, of klippa. So that's something really powerful. Something really, really powerful. And I think we'll get back into it later on. But he's saying that our body is a vehicle, and whatever we choose to drive it with, whatever thoughts we choose to drive it with, if we choose impure garments and we follow the urgings of the animal, then our body, our blood, our organs become impure, dressed in impurity. If we do holy things, mitzvot, and learn Torah, then our emotions and everything, our garments are holy. Therefore, our organs and our blood is clothed in holiness, in kedusha, in elevation, literally picking us up out of our situation. If we're following these impure garments, we're putting on these impure garments of thought, speech, and action of the animal soul, then we're just following our natural urges and we're pulling ourselves back down into the challenges. But what sort of thoughts, words, and actions are the garments of the animal soul? Good question. Earlier in chapter 4, we learned that the divine soul has specific thoughts, etc., in which it clothes itself, namely thought, speech, and action in matters of Torah and of mitzvot. Are we then to understand that the animal soul too has specific garments, sinful thoughts, words, or actions maybe? Not so, states the Alter Rebbe praying. All thoughts, all words, and all actions that are not directed toward God and toward the service of God, even though they're not actually sinful, these are garments of klippa. Hence, they are garments of the animal soul. Woo, that is so powerful. That's like drop the mic moment. In his words, the Alter Rebbe says, these garments of the animal soul comprise all the deeds that are done under the sun. All unholy things, all things that are impartial, neutral, that don't have a holy or unholy sign on it, mundane activity. So all the garments of the animal soul are comprised of all the deeds under the sun, means that it's all mundane action, not just unholy action, not just impure and evil thoughts and feelings and action and speech, but also things that are not holy, which is a big range. It's all the things that can be neutral. It's all the things that don't have a sign on it, if I'm using it yet, for the good or for the bad. So what does this mean? It means that when I'm going to sleep, when I'm waking up, when I'm yawning, when I'm eating breakfast, when I'm drinking water, when I'm going to the toilet, all these things that aren't bad, these are still part of the impurity. These are still garments of impurity, of the klippa. And the more that we do these things, it will coarsen our animal soul even more. So that here's the thing, that he's given us the Torah. He's given us something to upgrade our intellect, something to clothe ourselves in different clothes while we live and do all these mundane activities. How? By elevating into spiritual holy endeavors. How do we do that? How do I turn my going to the bathroom into a holy endeavor instead of being coarsened by the impurity of just going to the bathroom? I do that by the intention that I've learned through the Torah. Hashem gives me kavanah. Hashem teaches me intellect, his intellect. So when I apply this reasoning while I'm doing something, when I do a bracha, say a bracha, after coming out of the bathroom, I wash my hands, al natilas yadayim, I say the bracha, that now has transformed into a holy experience. Actually, there's a really cool meditation that I do as well, and it's helped me a lot with digestive issues and all of that, is we're part of the process of creation. So the food that we eat, this is a big, big secret of Kabbalah, of the Torah. The food that we eat actually contains souls, neshamas, of people who have passed away, and they need some rectification in this world. And until they get rectification to a certain level, they can't enter the higher realms of the afterlife, right? So what do? They come back down in different forms, in physical objects, in animals, in whatever it is all around us. And when we say a bracha, when we elevate something, then they're attached to us. And by going through a proper process of spiritual development through our brachas, through our elevating, through our kana, right? Then they get to be elevated and refined on another level so that they can reach the high levels spiritually up in Shamayim, right? I'll give you an example. When you have food in front of you, before you eat the food, before you even think about the desire that you have, try to sober yourself to think of, there's a neshama in this food, in this apple that I'm about to eat, and I want to help it, to elevate it so that it can have a better life, right? I have that opportunity by saying a bracha. So I'm going to say the bracha, I'll give it this elevation, and it'll sit in me until I go to the bathroom. Right? After I eat, I bench, like I say the bracha, thanking Hashem for what I've eaten. That gives it more elevation again. One whole process, this whole journey that I've had with this neshama will end. But a lot of an amazing thing with kavanah, like with intention. Kavanah means intention. Like Hashem, oh no, internet unstable. So is to think, Hashem, thank you for giving me this opportunity to help elevate this person, and may he be more refined, and may he enter the higher gates, right? May his suffering be lessened, and may he have mercy. You can say a prayer for this neshama, and you can say, like, I hope that I've done good by him. I hope that I've been a good partner with you, Hashem, to help this person. And so through that, I found actually my own personal digestive issues of constipation or whatever have really relieved, and I'd really leave it, let it go. There's no control. It's just an opportunity, And then what you find is the food that you start eating, the more you do this, you built up a connection of spirituality because you've elevated this mundane experience, which means this evil experience in the sense of klippa, right? Which is something that will drag you down the more that you involve in it. But the more that you put holiness to it, the more that you put the Torah intention behind it, then the holier you become. So the next time you won't have such an urging for food, you'll be much more refined as a person, but also you're a co-creator. So you're helping these neshamas like get where they need to go. And so, yeah, and that's amazing. When you come out of the bathroom, there's part of the process is to wash your hands on the tilos yadayim, say the bracha, think about the neshama, and like, amazing. You've done what you've done, and it's beautiful. You're elevating yourself. So every moment that you do anything, you can use your intention, right? By having Hashem, godly thoughts. And in that way, you're actually attaching your whole body, clothing your entire organs, your entire system with holiness, and you're elevating this whole experience, right? If you don't do this, if people just act as robots and just do the next thing they have to do without having any intention, then unfortunately, we're learning here that it is considered klippa, because the source of mundane comes from impurity. So the Rebbe Rashab goes on to explain, the more impurity that you involve yourself in means it coarsens you more and more and more. So what does that mean? Let's say the Rebbe Rashab talks about food. Actually talks about a lot of things, but in the example of food, this soul, this person will be eating his everyday. First he wakes up in the morning, then he gets dressed, then he gets his food going, then he eats, and he goes to the bathroom. So all these things that he's done during his day without bringing godliness into it is just one and another and another and another impurity that he's added to himself to like cover himself, his godly neshama up a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. So he'll be more, it'll be easier for him to connect with the negative emotions, right? Because all of this is connected with the animal soul. All of this mundanity is connected with this animal soul. So this animal soul is connected with the klippa, connected with the negative emotions. So all his 7 emotional middot will come out. His negative thinking will come out, right? All these things are much easier to come out, which means how you're going to deal with life, how you're going to be kind to all the people around you when you're under a lot of pressure yourself. And then that will cause him to sin, right? That's how a person sins. It's one coarseness built up upon another coarseness and another coarseness, which leads a person to sin. Because if a person is open, cleared out, no heart barriers, no barriers on his soul whatsoever, his godly soul, then there's no way a person will sin. It just doesn't equate. It doesn't live on the same level. And that's the beauty of life, I think. The life that Hashem has given us is, it's really like every thought, every action, and every speech. Even if we're doing mundane things all the time, if we try once to really put this intention, this connection with Torah, with Hashem, in one thought, in one speech, in one action, it really does a lot. Because in that way, we're starting to elevate ourselves just a little bit. And a little bit is still a lot more than before. It means a little less of barriers. So I think that's phenomenal. So again, like us learning this is not to put a hammer on our head and say, look at everything you're doing wrong. Chas v'shalom, that's not the way. It's to see how easy it is for us to fall. It's to see how easy it is for our family members, for our children, for our spouse, for our co-workers, for people to fall into these sort of traps of thinking, of feeling, of acting horribly to us when they're not feeling great. It's so normal. And we can see how easily this thing builds up. It's because just living causes this, which is why we want to more and more involve Torah in our life, involve God's wisdom in our thinking throughout everything, involve as many brachot, learn as much Torah about wherever we want to upgrade our mundane life, right? Like before we go to bed, bracha to say, intention to bring, When we wake up in the morning, prayers. In the middle of the day, prayers. All throughout everything, there's always like connection that you can have with God and elevate it holy. So what the Tanya goes on to talk about is that the animal souls, all the garments of the animal soul, thought, speech, and action that have to do with anything in life, right? That is not kedusha, that is not holiness, such as going to the bathroom, waking up, breathing, da-da-da. These are all considered vanity and an affliction of the spirit. Why? We just learned why. Because it's coarsening us naturally. As the Zohar and Pashas Shalach interprets this, it's a ruination of the spirit of holiness. Like when you're rude to someone, when you're mean to someone, when you think boastfully, when you're aggressive, it's a ruination of kedusha. Similarly, all words and thoughts that are not directed to Hashem and to his will and to his service are all garments for the animal soul. For this is the meaning of the term sitra achra, literally the other side, not the side of holiness. So it's so easy. Hashem makes it so easy. All we have to do is direct our thoughts to Hashem, to his will, to his service, to his Torah. And then we're clothing our body in purity, in elevation. So thus, whatever does not belong to the realm of holiness is sitra achra. But what in fact does the realm of holiness encompass? The side of holiness is nothing but the indwelling and the extension of Hashem's holiness. Now, God dwells only on that which is surrendered to him. Oh, isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? I love this. Whether the surrender is an actual one, wholeheartedly surrendered to him, and visible, even in that surrendered being's external aspects, as in the case with the supernal angels, their entire being is constantly and openly surrendered to God. Or whether this surrender is a potential surrender, as is the case with every Jew here below in this physical world. Every Jew has the capacity for surrendering himself completely before God through the martyrdom for the sanctification of God's name. Self-sacrifice. So what's it saying here? Again, like the power of humility is beyond comprehension. And we can do our best to try and understand. That's what we're here for. The more we try, the more we gain, but there's always still more to be developed. And so we have a gift of always learning more and more. But it's one of the first steps of creation was humility. Hashem crushed and humbled himself in order to create existence. Otherwise, there's only God and nothing else, which was how the world was, which was how existence was. It was just Hashem. But when Hashem decided, I want to create life, he crushed and humbled himself. And from that, he was able to build things that that seemed further from him, other realities, where I can think and feel completely uninfluenced, let's say, like not forced in any way. I can have free choice, right? That's crazy. Who can say that about themselves? Who can say that they don't let their control, they don't let their ego, they don't let their self in the way in any of their relationships? It's not human to do that. It's so easy to have my needs pop up here and there. It's so easy. I can see it when I feel sad. I can see it when I feel hurt or angry. I can see it in any of these negative emotions. Why? Because it's connected to the ego and the animal soul of impurity. And it's showing me that someone's stepping on my toes and I don't like it. It makes me feel low about myself. But if I was connected with myself properly, with my true self, then I wouldn't even have any sense of this. it wouldn't be this case. I wouldn't feel like I need these people to make me feel good about myself, because I would be so humble, right? My sense of self would be so crushed in order to have a relationship, in order to involve myself with this other person truly, where positive emotions exist, only positivity, only growth, only love and compassion, right? It's amazing. We have this potential, but we have to keep working on it, because there's always going to be a trigger. They will never stop. They will never stop. We have to build our Torah knowledge, build our intellect to see things more this way. So it's one of the primordial powers of the world to be humble and to crush yourself for the sake of peace, for the sake of unity. And unfortunately, it's not, I haven't experienced it in the outside world as something of a virtue, like a good thing. Sometimes it's seen as putting yourself down. It's seen in a negative light, that you're letting other people step on you and you'll suffer for it and it's all your fault and right? And you're not empowering yourself. But it's not true. This is it's not supernal, it's not it's not a real truth of the world. Here we're learning the real truth of the world. Humility is incredible, and what it does to yourself, because again, you're elevating yourself by clothing yourself in a holy thought, speech, or action, right? With this humility, if you're thinking humbly before another person and humbling your feelings, your emotions in front of your child who's getting really tantrum and angry, then you have that garment. If you add the garment of your actions, your behavior, your mannerism with this humility, then you've taken another garment and elevated yourself. Then it's easier to change your speech, so that when you speak to your child, your tone will be soft, it'll be gentle, it'll be completely unaffected by this negative energy coming from this little brat. Chas v'shalom, not a brat, but I'm saying, like, you can have this potential. You have this potential because you're a daughter of God. And this is one of God's biggest middot that he showed us, how powerful it is. It can create a world, right? So how powerful is it when you can humble yourself in thought, speech, and action before your child? You teach them incredibly. You make them feel okay. They're not a monster. They don't have to identify themselves as a monster. They can identify themselves as the soul that they are. Because if I'm showing them that I love you and I connect with you, even when you're acting so unlovable, then it means that's who you really are. And then they'll start to calm down. Their emotions, their thoughts, their feelings won't be so tied into their behavioral patterns, because they'll learn to let it go. If it's not me, then I can let it go. If I feel it's me, then I can't let it go. And if you don't have that humility, it's been my experience in my own life and what I've observed in reality, if I don't have that humility, then it causes such pain, and it causes repetition, and it causes behavioral patterns that will not change. And then that will cause your child, your spouse, your co-workers, it'll cause them to build up a me versus you attitude, because you don't accept me as I am, as the monster that I am, right? So this is powerful stuff. Humility is one of the biggest game changers. It's a gift. So, and it's not just humility on its own. We're learning here, it's humility for the name of Hashem, for God's presence, in order to bring God's presence into my child's life, into my relationship with my husband, with my business, my money, my financial assets, in everything, in my whole life, in my everyday experience, in my going to the bathroom, in my eating, in my clothing, in my everything. In order to bring godliness, this is doing something for the sake of Hashem. This is holy, big. It's not just being humble, it's being humble for Hashem to bring God in. So this is sanctification of God's name. When I stop myself for the sake of bringing God, that's incredibly holy. As explained further in Tanya, every Jew has the capacity for such self-sacrifice. In the face of an attempt to coerce him to forsake Judaism, for example, he will willingly suffer martyrdom. And we've seen that so many times in Jewish history, ancient history, modern history, so many times, so many examples where people, when faced with life or death in a situation of, in a conditional way that, sacrifice your Judaism and live, then, Rabbi Akiva, for example, he accepted not just to die for the sake of Hashem, but to die a horrible death, right? He understood that this world is not the be all and end all. This world is a means to infinity. It's not infinity itself, right? And we're so lucky we can live with that truth. This world is a means for an infinity. We have the tools to bring infinity into the bounds of reality, into the bounds and limitations of the finite. Thus, every Jew possesses internally within his soul the potential for surrender to God in every situation, whatever his external state, however much he's sinned, however much he's coarsened himself, however many times he's intentionally hurt another, hurt himself. Regardless of this, when it comes to a situation where the soul gets a little spark of awakening, which actually, like the Kabbalah teaches us that that's what happens, because a soul, even if he's sinned intentionally again and again and again and again and again, as he's listened to his Yetzer Hara, the negative voice telling him to do this thing and do that thing and go sleep with that man's wife because she's beautiful, or go eat that another serving of food because you deserve it, or whatever it is, like all these sins that keep piling up intentionally, even chas v'shalom, hurting someone, murder, whatever it is. The Yetzer Hara can fool us, but at a certain point, when the soul has been so covered, there will always be a moment when the godly soul, when a person has hit such a rock bottom, that the godly soul has this extra power to shine through, to come out for a minute of inspiration, of motivation, of really hating where I'm at, wanting to be somewhere else, wanting to connect with something higher. Everyone has been through this, Jewish, not Jewish, all walks of life, all ages. This is a thing, and it will continue to happen. The cycle will continue to happen. So we don't want to allow our neshamas to get there. Chas v'shalom, we don't want to put that pain. And a person is amazing if he can act on that inspiration, a moment of inspiration, right? Of teshuvah, it's called, of teshuvah, like wanting to return back to his essence, wanting to return back to his higher power, right? So if a person does the work to elevate himself, then he'll get back there and his soul will become more and more to the surface, and his klippot, all the coverings and the coarseness will melt away if he does what he's supposed to, right? The way Torah teaches you to come back. This is it. So even if a person will continually go towards the momentary self-pleasing acts, right, which we've learned is in accordance with that animal soul's klippa, impurities, which will continue to course in himself, there's still always going to be the godly soul still there. It's never going to go away. And one moment it'll come back. So we want to do our best to bring it to openness as much as we can. So this potential, however, may reveal itself only in the act of martyrdom, right? So it comes when you realize that, oh, I've hit a rock bottom. Oh, I've killed myself. I've killed myself with overeating. I've killed myself with hurting other people. I've killed myself with being so vain about how I look. I've killed myself. I've killed my soul, my very existence. What's the point of my life? So it's only when it comes to the act of martyrdom, when I'm ready to step on myself, crush my own ego for the sake of something higher, that this comes out, that the soul can come out. So because he is surrendered to God, this is why. Because if he is surrendered to God, that's when God's holiness has been invited and can finally rest on him. If you're busy shouting at your children, your husband, your co-workers, yourself for not keeping to your high standards of everybody, God does not rest here. Even if your battle is a holy spiritual fight, even if you're saying you have to be better, you have to pray more, you have to give charity, you have to you can't overeat, you can't do all these things. You could be talking to yourself, your child, your partner, doesn't matter who you're talking to. The result is the same. God is gone. And you can see that because it never works. It never works when you say it to yourself, and it definitely never works when you do it to someone else. Why? Because the transformational power is no longer there. What's the transformational power? It's God. It's infinity. So in order to bring infinity, in order to bring God into this experience, I need to surrender. I have to surrender myself to him. I have to crush myself in this moment. And by crushing myself in this moment, I gain God's presence. His holiness can rest upon me, right? Wow, it's amazing stuff. I think it's so powerful. I think we'll leave it there for now. To end this, I want to talk about something that Miriam talks about and something that I heard from Rav Shai's talk. And it is to do with the story of the splitting of the sea. When Bnei Israel were leaving Mitzrayim, leaving the most horrible challenges of life, the most painful constrictions spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, all of this darkness, when they were on their way to leaving it, they were faced with water and a hard place. It was actually water, stones, and wild animals, and a hard place. The enemy is coming to attack them and take them back. So they had nowhere to turn. What were they supposed to do? They were supposed to walk through the water. So we learn that as much as our finite, limited minds can understand this, we learn that before the world was created, Hashem, the shamas were created. It talks about the Jewish souls. And when the water was created, Hashem told the water, see these souls, become familiar with them, because you're going to have to split yourself. You're going to have to go against your own nature for the sake of these souls when they want to come through you, right? And that's going to happen in like 2,000 plus years from now of the creation of the world, right? So this happened. So this was essentially the splitting of the sea, leaving Mitzrayim. So what happened? The souls, the Jewish souls, after going through 204 years, I think it was, or 44, something like that, around 200 years of slavery in Egypt, what happened is their souls went through such low levels of klipa, to the lowest levels of impurity, right? Where God was not present, right? And we've learned the reasons why God will not be present with you, not because he doesn't want it, but because of your actions. And we can easily change that with our one thought, our one speech, our one action. We can change this, but we see that the Jews had gone to such low levels spiritually that their souls were not recognizable to the ocean, to the sea. So it didn't split. It didn't do what Hashem told it to do at the beginning of creation, right? Because it didn't notice who these people were. So the sea had to be convinced. When it was convinced finally that these coarse beings, these coarse Jews, are actually the same souls from old that they were introduced to ages back before creation, then it finally opened immediately, right? It changed its way of action, dealing. And the Jews were able to then actually really experience true freedom. They were no longer locked into the oppression with Mitzrayim. So what's this teaching? Rabbi Shais explains it, and Miriam also talks about it this way, in terms of you being a mother, in terms of you being a wife, in any relationship. Why? Because if you don't recognize the true, holy, beautiful, pure goodness in the other person, in your child, then your heart will be full of boundaries, trying to protect yourself from this monster, these monstrous actions, these monstrous thoughts that come your way, right? Because you recognize this person as a monster, so coarse, so covered, so evil, impure. You have to try to see the true essence behind this person, within this person, who this person really is. Once you see that, all your barriers over your heart, your constrictions will melt away, and your sea will split, and they'll be able to experience freedom, right? And you'll be able to experience the freedom of not being locked into the spiritual tension, right? This is what you have to do in order to be a mother. It's so important. And it's what we were talking about before, because you're helping your children, your spouse, yourself, people around you, by doing this, by trying to connect with their essence more, trying to see them, get rid of all the surfaces, right? And really see who they are. Then you're helping them more and more, like we said before, to recognize the true self within them. That all the thoughts, all the speech, and all the actions doesn't define them. They're going through a hard time, fine. But as long as you don't scream at them, attack them, then you're not defining them through their thought, speech, and action. And they'll learn not to define themselves. And then all of the issues of childhood, behavioral patterns, all these things can just melt away. They don't even have to take up the next generation in such a way that maybe we have suffered. And that's the gift of this Torah. Really, that's a gift. May we all have this chus, the merit to take Hashem up on this offer, to bring him into our lives, to elevate ourselves, to give us the courage to elevate the people around us through this interaction, and connecting with people as their essence. So without further ado, let's go into our meditation. I hope I am recording because my internet hasn't been great. Great.
still looks good on this side.
Pardon?
Sorry, it still looks good over here.
Oh, perfect. Amazing. Great. Okay, let's get into our meditation. I invite everyone to close your eyes. Allow your mind, your body, all the tension, all the guilt, all the pain and suffering to just melt, relax, breathe in. Give yourself this opportunity to breathe in divine, God. Feel all the tensions, all the negativities, all the hurt feelings, and all the thoughts that were behind those hurt feelings. Imagine them all seeping through your body from the deepest core, your animal soul, the deepest source of these thoughts and feelings, to your animal soul, through your body, your organs, your tissue, your blood, coming up to the surface of your skin in the form of dark, shadowy manifestations. And imagine all these thoughts and feelings or actions, wherever they may be, maybe in your eyes. Imagine this tension seeping from your animal soul through the body to hang around outside the surface of your skin. Maybe the way you perceive the situation, an argument you had, some resentment you're holding on to because of the way you interpret the situation. Maybe your mouth, your speech, the way you've eaten, the coarseness around that. Maybe your hearing. Maybe you've listened to negativity. Your mind. Maybe you've entertained hurtful, negative, self-indulgent thoughts. Victimized thoughts. Self-righteous thoughts. Maybe your heart. All this clipper. Negative thinking, causing your heart to suffer with pain, with anguish, with anger, resentment. With pompousness and lust. Imagine all of these impurities seeping from the depths of your animal soul through all layers of your body. See these shadowy manifestations on your skin. Go through all the organs of your body, all the limbs of your body, wherever your hands acted in a mundane or hurtful way. Grab forcefully or for your own will. Wherever your legs run off to. Imagine whatever impurities your animal soul has been hiding behind and your body been suffering by. Imagine it all come to the surface. All thoughts, all speech, all action to do with any part of your body. Imagine it come up. See your body covered in black, shadowy manifestations. Be excited in a holy excitement in anticipation of ridding yourself of these impurities. And watch as you push these impurities, send them downwards into the ground, flushed out of your space. See as the earth absorbs it all. And watch the beautiful transformation from dark, impure, gross blackness into beautiful, pure, holy light. And watch as it gets elevated and sent up to Shemayim. With your excited heart, feel God's presence entering you because of this act of humility, of recognizing that I've done wrong, that I've thought and spoken wrong. Be willing to sacrifice my self-attachments and rid myself of them. Imagine God entering all of these spaces that exist in the deepest parts of my souls, cleaning my godly soul, elevating it, elevating my body. Imagine God's power pumping through my blood and my organs, pumping through my thoughts, my emotions. Fill these emotions of happiness, of purity, of peace and unity, of love, of harmony. Feel God, His excitement in this relationship with you. Beloved daughter, beloved child. Now see yourself for who you truly are, your essence, your goodness, a part of Hashem. Look in front of you, all the people in your life, especially the ones that you've been struggling with. In this powerful, holy state that you're in, with God, take a look at these people who've wronged you and look through them and recognize their essence, their true self, their holiness, their part of God. And imagine your love for them. Your care for them, your happiness, overflowing from you and flowing through them, melting away all the clippers and enforcing their core self. Now watch their demeanor change in appreciation for you, in feeling a godly presence, in being connected with their true self. See how they act. They're smiling, they're happy, they're laughing. There's no pressure. Reach out your hand towards them. Feel the love, the beating hearts that unite with God, here to facilitate, to connect. Thank you. And with that prayer in our heart to Hashem, everyone take a moment in your own words. Plead with Hashem. God, please, may the thoughts that we've experienced tonight, may this image of self-sacrifice, l'shem shamayim, for your sake, for the sake of peace, to see the essence of the true person in this difficult relationship I have with my spouse, with my children, with my friend, with my colleague. And give me the extra powers to see their essence and connect with their essence, to connect with my essence. And may the image be ingrained in the grooves of my mind and the grooves of my heart. So that my thought, my speech, and my action reflect your presence. And bring out their salvation, my salvation. Really sitting with this feeling, God's divine presence, radiating, pulsating, energetically and vibrantly through you. How to come back into your body. More purified, more strength. To bring more godliness into your life through your thoughts, through your learning, through your intentions, through every moment. May Hashem help us in this enough to purify ourselves and make ourselves holy. All right. Does anyone have any comments, questions, thoughts they'd like to share with everybody?
I think this was a difficult topic for me to listen to today. Just the context of it.
Thanks for sharing that.